YouTube after the fact. There we go. We're now recording, and I will share my screen with the presentation. All right. So thanks everyone for joining. I think I saw all familiar names and faces there pop up, but just in case anybody is with us for the first time today, my name is Luke Mish, a planner here at DPD, leading the Invest Southwest initiative in Englewood. So thank you all for joining on the roundtable today. We've got a pretty brief agenda in terms of presentation, and really want to open it up for a couple of discussion items as we continue. And we do have some guests with us today as well. So in addition to the welcome, which I'm pretty sure we just covered, we wanted to go over the announcement that happened last Monday, the 8th, when Mayor Lightfoot, along with Commissioner Cox, announced the winners of the RFPs in Englewood, as well as Austin and Auburn Gresham. That would be the Englewood Connect team, led by McLaurin Development. Zeb McLaurin is on the call with us today, as are members of the design team for that proposal. We just wanted to give that team a chance to reintroduce themselves. We know they met you all, of course, in the January sessions, but now that they've been selected as the winners, we wanted them to get a chance to say hello and give a brief overview of the project again. I know this will probably be the third or fourth time we've discussed the particulars of the project, but just a brief reminder of that proposal, which is now the winning proposal. And then we can open it up to a discussion of how we see engagement unfolding over the next few months as that project advances. And then finally, we want to take some time to discuss with you all the priorities for future roundtable sessions. The RFP itself has obviously taken up a lot of our time over the last few months. There will be additional information on the RFP, well, as we stop calling it the RFP, frankly, and start calling it the Englewood Connect proposal. There will be more to come on that in future roundtables, but we also want to get this group's thoughts on non-RFP topics that we should cover. So with that, again, I'll say that, you know, as announced last Monday, the winning team was Englewood Connect, led by McLaurin Development, along with Farpoint Development. You see here a smattering of folks from their team. Again, this selection happened over the course of many weeks, thanks in large part to the help of the folks on this call. Between the engagement sessions in January, the online survey information that folks were able to provide, and additional information and feedback we got in February, the evaluation committee led by DPD selected this team as one that we thought not only had put forward a great proposal in terms of the design and the program, but who also showed a clear ability and aptitude to continue engaging both with the city and with the community as the development unfolds. So with that, I'll actually turn it over to Zeb. Zeb, if you're out there and you want to jump on, it'd be great for you to introduce yourself and the folks from the team that are on with us today, and we can maybe just page through a little bit here to refresh folks' memory about the proposal.
Sure, thank you, Luke, and welcome everyone. Thank you for allowing us to reintroduce ourselves and to engage in this process and work along with this roundtable group, as well as the entire Englewood community, and pushing our vision forward and aligned with your goals and objectives for the site. With me today are three members of our design team: Tiara Hughes from SOM Architects, David Scully from SOM Architects, and Taylor Staten from TNS Design Studio. Luke, if you could page on. So these are all concepts derived directly from our RFP submittals, so they may look familiar to you. What we've described as and adhering to the tenets of the RFP: renovation of the firehouse and proposed future phases with an addition to the firehouse, and a proposed future phase on the east side of what is currently the Green Street right-of-way, and we're describing as the Commons, a really integrated communal gathering space envisioned for the entire site. Opening the firehouse up to the public with proposed uses that might include food retail, business incubator, and shared office space, in addition to community space for community events that might spill over into the future phase as proposed with an addition to the firehouse. And then the proposed living room, if we could scroll to the next site page, please. Our proposed concept for the new addition building called the Englewood Living Room, intended to be a year-round facility and structure that's completely transparent, open to the public, intended to house a variety of community events and a variety of community activities to promote economic development and commerce with for local businesses, and provide a space for them to share their goods, products, and services to the greater Chicago South Side. As has been described before, we intend for this to be a very lively and engaging component of the project, with the Green Street Commons being a focal point and a community gathering space for all around. Anything from local community events, education, and for both school-age children up to our college participants that are in the immediate area, as well as neighborhood institutions such as the Archdiocese of Chicago with their WIC Food Center, our local businesses and institutions, public library, police districts, et cetera. And so our intent, next slide, please. Our intent is to really now start the process with the community and really programming not only the site, but the space. These are our conceptual visions of what we think the space could look like and what it could program, but certainly looking forward to working with all of you and the greater community in further defining those ideas and concepts, and then us working with our entire team to actually bring it to fruition. We're ready and prepared to meet the city's expedited schedule, so that it is all of our objectives to get in the ground with construction as soon as possible, and with the hope that we will have these beautiful facilities open and active to the community within the next year to two.
Great, thank you, Zeb. So I think obviously if folks have questions about the, let me back up for a second. I think what we know is going to be critical is continued engagement, not only with this group, but with the broader Englewood community. And so we'll be sitting down with Zeb and the team actually this Friday to start ironing out what that looks like, and setting expectations around engagement and around the rest of the materials and kind of information that we need to move the project forward. With that said, if folks do have questions with Zeb and the design team on the call, happy to take those. But just know that there will be additional opportunities for detailed discussion of program design, tenants, connections, all those kinds of things. But they are on the call with us today, and so if you want to drop a question in the chat or chime in, please do so. What I do want to touch on is the fact that moving forward, we want to establish a engagement cadence, if you will. And so this is what we are currently looking to establish. In March, for the rest of this month, we'll be working with Zeb and the team to establish community connections. We'll see on the next slide what we mean by that, but we want to start making those touch points happen, so that the team is able to get in front of the right folks and hear the right voices, hear from as many folks as possible, you on the call, the organizations you represent, residents, business owners, anyone and everyone who's interested. We want to make sure we're starting that process in March of identifying those organizations and individuals, so that come April, that engagement can start in earnest. And so as you can see kind of laid out here on the slide, that would be, again, the connections happening throughout the next few weeks. In April, a series of engagement strategies, whether that be workshops, focus group discussions, or individual interviews with particular organizations, online surveys, more public forums. That's all yet to be crafted. So happy to take any feedback on that, what folks think about the right strategies on that front. But we will be crafting that over the next few weeks, preparing to launch it in April. And then at the end of April, we have our next roundtable. That's on the 28th, again, Wednesday at 4 p.m. on the 28th. That'll be our opportunity to come back and Zeb and the team can share, the feedback that they've heard over that engagement, what folks think about the design, what folks think about the program and the operation, the phasing, all of that. I think April will be our time to understand that and then to report back to this group what's been heard. And then May is the opportunity to begin implementing that through, revisions to the design, through agreements with potential tenants, or operators, those kinds of things. And so that would give us a May roundtable, which we still haven't set a date for that yet. We think probably towards the end of the month. But the May roundtable would again be our time to come back and present essentially the final proposal, which will have been crafted by engagement through March and April. So when we talk about making those connections here in March, what you see on the slide here is a starting point, absolutely a starting point. It is, our first stab at identifying some of the organizations that we know have been active on this call, have been active in the community. It is not the end of a list by any means. That's why you see right in the middle, who are we missing? We know we're missing folks on this slide. We want to hear from you all today. Again, either chime on in, drop it in the chat. As you think of things over the next, few days or weeks, feel free to email us. But I'd like to actually pause here and take a moment to talk with you all about, how do we make sure we are, as this engagement rolls out with the Englewood Connect team, how are we engaging the right folks? Who are those organizations and individuals and stakeholders that we should be engaging? And then what are some ways that we can do that that meet the priorities and the goals of the community, and again, address, frankly, a less than a preferred scenario where we have now where everything is still virtual. We hope things will start to become a little bit more in person, but over the timeline we're looking at, I think things will probably remain largely virtual, with the potential for some, socially distanced engagement as well. So I'll pause here. I'd love to hear folks' thoughts. I see, thank you, Anton in the chat has listed Imagine Englewood If. So we will add Imagine Englewood If to our list. At this point, I'll back off. Just let me know who and let me know how as you all are thinking about it.
I'll chime in. Taylor Staten, TNS Studio. I guess my question would be, would we be interested in looking at the local businesses that exist, like the Black-owned businesses that exist in that area? Are they stakeholders that we're interested in, getting input from?
Yeah, I mean, my response, short answer is yes, but I'd love to hear thoughts from the roundtable if there are specific establishments that we should be sure to reach out to, and obviously, I would say we see this as kind of an unfolding, tree, kind of a phone tree, right? As conversations happen with individuals, we can continue to ask them who else is in this network that should be contacted. But that's a great question, Taylor. I'd love to hear thoughts from anyone else on the call in terms of who we should make sure that is part of this conversation over the next few months. Oh, okay. Sorry, I'm looking in the chat as well. Thanks, Aisha. Iman, yes. Iman needs to be on the list as well. Oh, I see a few more here. Thanks everyone for dropping these in the chat. Sorry, I was anticipating audio. So let me just read this out loud for everyone else. We've got the Englewood Minister Alliance. And let me see, is that Anton as well that wrote that? Yeah, Anton. So apologies, Pastor Chisholm leads that alliance. Is that right? Okay, I think Anton may still be on mute. See St. Benedict Parish.
You know, I'm 100% behind.
I see a few others here. I'll just continue reading these out loud so folks know who's being suggested. I see. I want to make sure I'm getting this right. I Grow Chicago
are talked out of Zoom, so I'm using my chat function. Is that
okay? Hey, no, totally get it. That's fine. That's fine. I'll take any input I can get in any format. So this is great. I see I Grow Chicago. Ken Johnson is listed there, and then I believe I see We Are Englewood listed as well. Antioch Missionary. I'm just reading this out loud for everybody. I know we probably can all look at the chat, but it's nice to just make sure I'm reading things off. Okay, yes, I see. I see back and forth happening in the chat. That's great. Yes, Englewood STEM. That's a good call. Community Action Council. This is great. So keep this coming, folks, in the chat. This is fantastic. I'll probably just go ahead and continue here with the presentation, but do keep adding these. We will take this all down and make sure that we have a robust stakeholder list and go from there.
Luke,
yes,
can I add on to that with what Aisha said about the STEM, Englewood STEM High School?
Yes.
Is that high school is already doing a design sprint. I think it's coming up in a week or two, where they're actually doing some designs based on the firehouse in that space, right? So just to kind of tap in with them, and they're already in that direction already. So maybe some of you can serve on that little design panel that they're working on with the high school. And great. I can send some contact for that.
Yeah, that'd be great. I actually did speak with Ben Cosgrove over there, who's one of the teachers at Englewood STEM, and he's, I understand, helping to lead the sprint. So yeah, I'll be sure to get the team involved in that as well. I think I saw it moved away from me here, but I think I saw Cecile had a question. Did you want to type that in or throw that out there, Cecile?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go
okay.
For it.
My question for the engagement component is when the stakeholder list is created, is the engagement process going to be like interviews with these organizations or design charrettes with these organizations and their stakeholders? Because I just wanted to know a little bit more of what should we be expecting in the exchange for this engagement process?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that's still being determined. Actually, I don't know if Taylor or Tiara or Zeb, if you all had thoughts as you've been, pulling this together, if there were initial inklings. I know we have a lot of discussion left to do on this, but didn't know if you had any initial ideas as a response to Cecile's question there.
Well, community engagement is a robust component of any development project, especially ours that we lead. We view the community as partners, obviously, and are willing and prepared to engage to the extent possible and with whomever is necessary. We especially like, and I wrote down the Englewood STEM School, we're especially like the synergy and being able to connect where there's opportunities for career path engagement with local students, obviously at the high school as well as the college level. and to introduce community members to design, architecture, engineering, obvious construction, but certainly want to provide at least an entree and a peek behind the curtain to the other aspects of real estate development. And you never know where you might pique a young person's interest in that regard. And even entrepreneurialism, as is obviously is a major component of our program here. I did also want to, I saw another question about the WIC Center specifically. Although the Archdiocese of Chicago provided a letter of support to our proposal as our submittal, we do not own that building. We might have interest in it. Obviously, the current owner has been a legacy owner of the property, but the Archdiocese themselves are very interested in expanding their programming and reach outside of that existing building. Unfortunately, it just in its current configuration cannot handle or house their growth plans and additional programming. And so they would be a natural strategic partner for our programming with Englewood Connect.
Cecile, just to follow up on that, are there, as we craft all this, are there specific kinds of outreach that come to mind for you that would either be appropriate kind of broadly or specifically for certain kinds of groups? Love to take any thoughts on the style and approach to engagement too that you might have.
Similar to what Zeb was starting the answer to, I think it's like different ways that it can happen. I saw on the earlier slide the online survey, the interviews, but the conversation with like additional stakeholders. That's just what I wanted, clarity, because there's a lot of the partners that are here that we're brainstorming in the chat. You can have an interview with them, you can have an interview with their leadership, but how do you engage parts of their base is a good part of the community engagement process. And I think, it just helps us with more diverse stakeholders having an opportunity to contribute. And that's what I just wanted to get to see if there was a path already laid out for that. But it seems like from your response, Zeb, it's like it's going to be a mixture of all of those things.
It certainly can be, and I'm actually now going to ask a question responding to that. Does the Roundtable have an online mechanism to gather community input? And if not, perhaps then there's an opportunity for us as the project developer. We will certainly develop a website for the project, and if it would be appropriate to create some sort of mechanism on that website for community engagement.
Yeah, I can try to tackle that. I think, as you might expect, Zeb, you're probably going to be a little bit more nimble than the city is on getting that up to speed. We don't have a dedicated website yet for the Roundtable. We have an Invest Southwest Englewood website. It's not very interactive at the moment. Obviously, we released online surveys related to the selection process. We'd be happy to help craft those and distribute those, but it's probably beneficial to spin up a project-specific website that might be able to house, more of that engagement. Oh, great! And I see in the chat that Aisha's noted that Rage would be willing to help host items. And Aisha, sorry, I don't mean to call you out. Is that digitally hosting, or would there maybe be some physical things that you might be able to help facilitate?
We will be open to either one.
Okay.
With our members or with the general public.
Perfect. That would be helpful. Before we move on, or if others have questions, I wanted to capture one. Joan had a good question. That's on me. As we were building this slide, I was starting with community organizations and managed to get Alderman Coleman's logo on there. I did not manage to get everyone else's logo on there. So of course, interaction and engagement with all the aldermen on this call and engaged in this project and on this TIF would be paramount. So that's a graphic misstep, not an indication of lack of engagement. So, but thank you for calling that out and making sure that we clarified that. I see some more names coming through in the chat, so that's really helpful. Appreciate that. Any other questions? I thought I saw somebody raise a hand really quickly, but I don't know if that went away. Okay. Great. Well, this has been really helpful, and we want to continue to get folks' thoughts. So I think you all have my email. If you don't, I will actually here. Let me just drop it in the chat just one last time. Please just reach out directly to me with any. Sorry, I can't talk and type at the same time. With any additional thoughts on the who or the how, and we'll continue to craft that. And we'll be in communication with you all via email. Of course, we don't meet with you all next until the end of April, and we want to basically be moving through engagement by that point. So look for email communication from us, but we will be developing this kind of robust engagement strategy over the next couple of weeks, and making sure that we're able to do that and implement that throughout April. Great. So I will move on to the next topic of our agenda. As we do, Zeb, thank you again for joining us. Tiara, David, Taylor, thank you all. If you're able to stick around, please do. Folks may have questions that pop up, but I did want to talk a little bit with everyone around kind of non-RFP agenda topics for the future. But thank you all so much for joining. And again, to folks on the call, if you have questions specific to the proposal, send them my way, and we can get those questions in front of Zeb and the team. So the last thing we wanted to talk about here, and we've got about 30 minutes left. We don't have to take that whole time, but I really do want to make sure I get folks' thoughts on what else we should be talking about at these roundtables. I know that the RFP itself has been a critical item, and we're excited to be at the stage we are today. But there's a lot of other things that this roundtable and Invest Southwest in general want to be able to tackle. And so on the screen, again, another starting point. These are ideas. These are things that we've talked about either at a high level, very early on with this group, things that have come up in our discussions with the aldermen, with others on this call. So I'd love to know this group's thoughts on kind of next priorities. I could see, for example, in April, part of that conversation could be a recap of the RFP engagement that Zeb and the team have led. And part of it could be moving on to new business. And so that could, I think we could start that as soon as April. I see Bruce has a hand up. Go ahead, Bruce.
Yes. One of the things that came out in our conversation with the community were some questions around, to the extent would the selected projects advance technology infrastructure in the community. One conversation mentioned the need for broadband. Would the development and the surrounding community be in line to add extra capacity, building out fiber infrastructure? Would there be a public Wi-Fi that would be available along the commercial corridors? And how would a broader attempt to get more technology infrastructure available to advance community development in the surrounding impacted areas? So one of the things that's been very obvious as a impact of the pandemic is the need for everyone in the community, young and old, entrepreneur and consumer, to have access to connectivity, broadband connectivity, and be able to use that for all of the stated reasons: public safety, community engagement, additional data gathering to support that data being available to community developers so that they can bake that into their other development processes. So I, as a person who's advocated along these lines for a considerable amount of time, I would like to see that be something put on the front burner, because there's not enough talk about the implications of technology or the lack thereof in terms of driving and accelerating some of the outcomes that we would like to see.
Yeah, No, that's great. Thanks, Bruce. So I'm hearing that in kind of two ways. One, how can the Englewood Connect project address that to some extent? And then what other broader conversations can we start in terms of a corridor level or neighborhood level implementation? So I'll definitely take that back. I think the mayor's office has started to work on this topic. And so I can connect with the right folks and we can start that conversation here with the roundtable. So that's helpful.
And I would definitely want the conversation to be neighborhood based and grassroots. For my money, whatever's conversations going on at the mayor's office is peripheral to the ideas, the innovative thoughts, the concepts and the constructs that the community might initialize. So I would, one of the concerns about these projects is while the community is given input, there needs to be more effort made to the community input turning into support for community implementation of the strategies that the community thinks of, not just reacting and responding and sometimes being run over by those strategies that come from other sources.
Great. Yeah, fair enough. That's really helpful. Any other thoughts, either reactions to what you see on the screen or things that maybe aren't on the screen that that you all have been thinking? Again, I'm looking at the chat box too if folks are kind of Zoom talked out, but happy to get any thoughts.
That was an expo brand.
Well, as folks collect their thoughts, I'll just go ahead and kind of give some voice to what's on the screen. There's some images here that I think it could be helpful to speak about. So one thing we've talked about is public realm and public realm improvements. And so what does that look like? We've had some conversations with CDOT. We know that part of the Invest Southwest initiative is to address streetscape improvements. And so that could be something that we talk about within the next few roundtables. What are those improvements? Is it resurfacing? Is it pedestrian amenities? What are those things? We've talked a little bit, I think, early on about the idea of tactical urbanism. Again, as a kind of quick definition, that's usually slightly more temporary improvements, ways of activating space. You can see some examples of that here on these images, but really it's aimed at improving pedestrian safety and activating space for both economic development and kind of, just public enhancement reasons. We've seen, the city's been involved in implementing strategies like this in other areas. So we'd love to start that conversation here at the roundtable about what that looks like at 63rd and Halsted and in Englewood, more broadly. And again, I think to Bruce's earlier point about grassroots level engagement, traditionally tactical urbanism is something that comes from outside of government. That's kind of definitionally where it started. I think CDOT, I don't want to speak for CDOT, but from what I understand, CDOT, and I can speak for DPD, we're excited by those kinds of initiatives and those innovations. And so we want to try to support them when possible. And if that means taking a larger role in implementing them, we're happy to do that. If it means finding ways to support more community-driven versions of that, that would be great. I'll take a pause from my reading through here because I see some good responses here. Transportation and mobility integration. Yeah, that's a good one. I'll note that down, Anton. I'm not sure. Obviously, feel free to jump in if you want to give more.
No, I'm just +1. I'm using the services here of the chat, but I think mobility and transportation would be ones for potential conversations here. And then I +1 Janelle around food access and the work that's being done around food and the emerging agricultural projects that are happening across the community.
Yeah, that's great. Janelle, not to put you on the spot, but when we talk about more affordable housing, did you have, that's pretty straightforward, but I'm curious if you had specific thoughts about maybe next steps as it relates to the roundtable.
You know, I just feel like we're always talking about empty lots and things like that, but more opportunities for affordable housing. The reality is the population we serve without housing, like I'm in the food access world, but it's not lost to me that without housing, nothing can really get started for people if they don't have a stable place to stay. So like, really, we have a lot of empty spaces and empty buildings. Like, what are our plans to utilize more of those to rehab them for affordable housing while in the same process thinking about food access?
Great, great, thank you. Yeah, that's helpful feedback. Sorry, I'm trying to look at all this. Englewood Hyperloop development. Okay, Jim, you may need to give us a little bit more background on that if you feel comfortable sharing. I see TOD development from Asia. Definitely. I mean, I think, you know, we see the Englewood Connect project as being one step in that direction, right? Improving redevelopment opportunities within a extremely transit served location. But we know that there are other opportunities for that as well, whether that be additional redevelopment sites related, you know, in the area of the Halsted Green Line stop, or whether that be other forms of kind of improvement to this corridor, which, you know, essentially this corridor is TOD, has the high potential for TOD. So what are the steps we need to take to get it there? But that's a helpful thought. Okay. Okay, Jim's given us a little bit more background. I'll get back to that in a second. I just wanted to finish kind of going through what you see on the slide here in case that jogs anyone's thinking. So public realm, I think we've talked a little bit about some of that. Public safety, I know that that's come up before. Again, what I'm aware of are initiatives coming from either the mayor's office or from elsewhere in DPD. We'd be happy to use those as a starting point and then understand what folks have in mind about how we can implement those and how we can adjust those, or what's going on in the community that we should be aware of, that we can support as well. So I know that you know, there's a violence reduction plan coming out of the mayor's office and a vacant lot activation plan. Those could be certain things. I see Alderman Lopez. Go ahead.
So I have a question. Are we also taking into account, you know, just today, the budget committee approved $88 million in CARES or COVID dollars for various things. CDOT got $4.1 million, 3.6 of which was for public space activation. Are any of those dollars going to be targeted to projects like these as well? Are those going to different neighborhoods?
That's a good question.
Do we know of that yet?
I don't know the answer.
Important to know.
Yeah.
Well, I think definitely, you know, as a community, you know, I know a number of my colleagues were in the hearing earlier today, but I think we have to start thinking globally too, from the city's perspective. I mean, you and DPD should know whether or not another department is getting funds for the exact same thing that's on your spreadsheet here, so that we're not, you know, having to, you know, duplicate dollars, but we could actually maximize dollars instead. So I just throw that out there as a FYI for everybody. And the same goes for like these job training programs and other things. I know Janelle spoke, but we know that they're also in line to get, you know, job force training, workforce development training dollars under the latest budget amendment. So, you know, maybe we should be more strategic when we see these grant dollars flowing out to ensure that they're all interconnected and not just being done in silos that nobody knows about or can't put them into a more homogeneous project like.
Yeah, no, thank you. That's really helpful. I think definitely getting CDOT, and I think we often have CDOT folks join us for these calls, but getting a more focused conversation with them on one of these calls will be helpful to understand where those funds are going, how we can leverage them, and what you know, what those synergies are between DPD and CDOT. and the activities that may already be happening in the community. So that's really helpful. Great. So again, this is a starting point, what you see on the screen. I think our next steps in terms of future agenda items will be to continue to coordinate, of course, with all the aldermen on this call, as well as to understand feedback from others on this call. So by all means, reach out if there are projects that you're aware of that you think will be important to raise to the level of the roundtable. Let me know, and we can start to figure out how to agendize those. And then our next steps, I think, would be to come back and share back with you all, hopefully at the next roundtable, what the slate of topics might look like as we move into the spring and even into the summer. And so and to talk about that, to say this is what we think, and maybe we reposition things change months as folks have thoughts. So again, we're ending a little early unless anyone else wants to chime in. I don't know if any of the other aldermen had thoughts or wanted to say anything. So I'll pause for a moment to see if there is anything outstanding out there. Oh, I see Eric has raised his hand. Go ahead, Eric.
Yeah, I was looking at the, excuse me, the tactical urbanism and streetscape improvements. And I know that tactical urbanism is typically just like a prototype of something to answer a question. And I haven't been a part of all these meetings, so I'd be curious to hear what were those initial asks or needs that we are prototyping. And this is for you, Luke, or anybody else on the call who was involved in those earlier meetings.
Yeah, I'll take a stab, but by all means, anyone else can chime in. So I think what we've seen is more explicit requests for tactical urbanism interventions in some other corridors. And so DPD has thought about how do we implement that in Englewood in the right way as well. So I think we really have to have that first conversation with folks about what are we hoping to achieve with these kinds of interventions, and then we can determine, how we best support that or how we best fund that or whatever it is. So I don't think we've quite had those conversations yet, is the short answer, Eric. But I think what we have seen are the successes on other corridors, and even outside of Chicago, we've seen plenty of examples of how this can improve retail viability, how it can improve public safety, pedestrian safety, and so we'd love to start those conversations and get an understanding from this group what the priorities are and how we tackle those. Okay, great. Well, if there are no other questions for the moment, I want to thank you all. I want to thank all. I believe I can't see if everyone's still here or not, but at one point we had all five of the Englewood 5 aldermen on the line. So I want to thank each and every one of you for joining us. And again, more to come, likely via email on what to expect over March and April. We'll be in touch with not only all of you, but with the great list that you've helped us compile here for the Englewood Connect engagement. And then as we come back in April, we'll be able to report back what the results of that engagement have been, and then to look forward to additional agenda items from there. So with that, I'll end us a little early, give you back 10 minutes of your day. Thank you so much. Everybody stay safe, stay warm. Hopefully we're done shoveling soon, but thank you all for your time, and we'll look forward to seeing you all again next month. Take care, everyone.
Thanks, Luke.
Thanks, Luke.
Thanks.